What is going on, everybody? South Bay Rebel back with another video. This one we're going to be looking at some Star Wars Lego, and today we have the Clone Trooper and Battle Droid Battle Pack. It comes in at just over 200 pieces and just about $30, and we're going to dive right in and see just how nice this set is and if you think it's worth it, or if I think it's worth it. So starting things off here, we're going to be diving right into the Battle Droid side of this battle pack. And as you can see, there is a lot to unpack here for such a small set. It's 3 Super Battle Droids, 2 B1 Battle Droids. You even get some buildable stuff with the Stap, as well as the Spider Droid. Now, I am aware that some people don't necessarily consider the battle droids, either one of these battle droids, to be quote-unquote minifigures, but I think they are, and for the sake of this battle pack, they kind of have to be, because you get 4 clone troopers and you have to have an opposing side when it comes to the minifigures in the set, and that is the battle droids. So as we move along at a closer look into these, we're going to take a look at the Spider Droid first. As far as its build quality, I think it's decently done. It looks good. It does have some playable functionality to it in those flick fire missiles. Believe that is kind of a throwback to the older Spider Droid that they released years ago. It's kind of an outdated delivery system for shootable weaponry in the Star Wars line, but I think it works on this particular build. As much as I would have liked to have seen a version of this with like maybe stud shooters, for example, I think this was the right call, and it kind of gives that nostalgia vibe to this build. I think the fact that you can articulate the legs or arms, if you will, on this is a nice feature. You can kind of make it taller or shorter and more squatty and give it a couple different looks, which also adds to the play feature. That said, it does have a pretty straightforward, no frills look to it, given the limited piece count. Moving right along into the Stap portion of the build, I gotta say this is probably one of my favorite aspects from this battle pack. The Stap looks great. I think it's really simple, but also really hits the nail on the head as far as what they're trying to achieve in the looks department. And I recently built one of the Lego Advent calendars from the Star Wars line, and it had a brown Stap in it, and it didn't quite look as good as this. But I gotta say, this one really blows that other one out of the water, and from every angle you catch it at, it looks good no matter what. I'm also digging the clear stand that they've got this one on, as well as the height of the stand. I think it's not too tall, not too short. It's just right. The droid looks great on it, especially with that blue color contrast against the tan of the droid. You can see the droid's even got a clip on the back piece there to stow that blaster for it to be able to hold on to the Stap with both of its hands. Really can't say enough good things about this Stap. If I ever go and do any mocks, this would definitely be the version of the Stap that I would be referencing, and I especially like the color concept here. I think it's pretty easy to put this one together. It's all just pretty run-of-the-mill parts. The only issue you might have if you were trying to do mocks of this Stap is trying to get the right colors for these pieces. Getting away from the build aspect of this set for a little bit and looking closer at the figures themselves, we're going to start with the Super Battle Droid. There are 3 in the set, and it's a bit of a refined version of what we saw in the past. I'll do a little bit of a comparison in just a second here, but I want to give you a nice view of the new version from a few different angles. It really looks good. The camera makes it look like there is more sheen or reflection or shine to it than there actually is. In reality, it's a bit more dull than the previous versions of this, and I think that's a good thing. I think too much glare is, it kind of takes away from some of the finer details. Here's that side-by-side comparison. The left is the newer version, the right is the older version, and there's definitely a slimmer look in the face, and you've got that dimple in the left shoulder, which is really just the main differences. Looking ahead now to the B1 battle droid, no real changes here to speak of. It's pretty much the same as it's always been. I will say that with the blaster, any attempt to stretch it outright in a forward position just resulted in the droid tipping over, so you kind of have to angle it up. They are a bit top heavy, especially when you add that blaster. It just makes them more so. And that was really the only complaint. No real changes to that one. Looking now at the clone trooper side of this build, starting it off with the turret. I think the turret is a bit basic. I've seen some other versions of turrets in other clone trooper packs and builds before. I will say I do like the stud shooter feature on this, and I like that you are able to swivel that. There's also a neat play feature in that part of the turret, on each side of it actually, there are shields. Those shields can be removed and put in the hands of the clone troopers and used in play. So I think that's a neat feature. It's not necessarily one that sets it apart for me, but given that it has some lackluster looks, I guess that kind of bridges the gap and makes it a little more acceptable. Here's a look at all 4 clone troopers, the one in the back with the long rifle we just saw with the turret. Now we're going to take a look at the speeder bike. It's also a bit lackluster on the details and the looks, but you have to remember that this set in total only has just over 200 pieces. So they were doing the best they could with the piece count. I do appreciate that. And it's convincing enough as a speeder bike. It holds 2 troopers. It has a rack on the back of it for those 2 blasters. I think it can also double as like blasters for that rear facing trooper to use if they were trying to defend the rear, but I think it's mostly intended to just hold the blasters for the 2 troopers that are riding the bike. You could also turn that other trooper around, I suppose, and have them both forward facing. The cool thing about this is there's a little box that comes with the set, and inside that box are some little thermal detonators, so you can swap out that trooper, use him elsewhere in your little battle scene, and put that box on the back of the speeder bike. Inside, I've got the thermal detonators there, so that's kind of a neat play feature. If you don't put that box on the bike, it's kind of just sitting wherever you want to sit it. It doesn't really have a place otherwise. Moving on now to what I think is kind of the star of the show, other than the Stap build, is the Shock Trooper. And I'm glad they went with a no-name character here. It's not Commander Fox or anything like that, which is how it should be in a battle pack, because if you're trying to army build, you don't want a bunch of named characters that are easily recognizable in droves. It just doesn't make sense. So having 3 regular troopers and a handful of shock troopers, if you bought a few of these sets, totally makes sense to me. The red looks nice, especially on that white. It really pops. I've heard of some of the reds looking almost pinkish in previous figures, similar to this one, so I'm glad that's not an issue here. He's got nice leg printing. He's also got printing on the back, but no arm printing, so a little lacking there. Also, you've got the helmet holes. I know that's a great point of debate for a lot of people, and they definitely stand out, but looking past that, it's otherwise a decent figure. Showing him here next to a Super Battle Droid, which I think is another one of the standout pieces of this set. They just did a good job refining it. You can tell that Super Battle Droid's got a little bit of a height difference. That's how it should be. They were pretty tall in the movies, So I'm glad that translated here when put up next to the minifigures, and it's just nicely done. Moving on to the box art here, you see all that you get there with the figures on the front of the box. They've got some designs on the side, including those spider droids with the flick fire missiles. They've got a little scene on the back with the droid not even putting up a fight. And it's just a funny scene. I like that they went the extra mile. Lots of color on the box art. It really looks nice. I'm glad they did go that extra mile and give it that extra touch to make it really pop and appeal to the eye. It definitely stands out on the shelf when you're at the store. I really like that orange, kind of a sunset kind of a vibe at the top of the box as well. I think that's really unique and it's really nicely done. The front of the box, pretty standard, but again, it's capturing everything it needs to. It's showing you everything that's included and really selling it on that battle pack aspect of it. I knew as soon as this was announced that I was going to get a couple of them, and I did, and I just want a few more after having built it. It's a good set. It's definitely everything that it's advertised to be, and I would highly recommend it. Let me know what you think of this set if you've got your hands on it already. Leave a comment down below, hit that like button, and definitely hit subscribe if you're a Star Wars fan, if you're a Lego fan, if you're a Lego Star Wars fan, or just a fan of the videos I make. I really appreciate all the support. And until the next one, take care everybody. South Bay Rebel signing off.